There was also a moment in the movie in which I sat there in the theater, I looked at my friend, and we both went, "Frick you, Sam Raimi! Frick you!" The Devil of Hell's Kitchen. Oh my God.
You
We
trying to
are
do a Trump
so
impression
back.
there for a second? What the hell was that?
No, I'm excited. I don't think you understand. Like we are eating good this week with trailers and various different things, but my God, give me all that Daredevil slop. Yum yum yum. For those that don't know, we got the Daredevil trailer. Brandon doesn't know nor cares about any of it, but he will have to start
Hey,
getting
don't
there.
care is way too far. I care. I just haven't finished the original Netflix Daredevil show, let alone Daredevil Born Again. I
Uh,
want to, but I was too young to watch them when they came out, and then I just never really had the time to go back and watch them because it's a lot of television.
no, I mean the entire Daredevil. I mean, if you're looking at the entire universe itself, that whole Netflix Marvel universe is so long, and I know because I watched all of it
You have
prior to Daredevil.
Daredevil, Jessica Jones,
Luke
Luke
Cage,
Cage,
Iron Fist.
Punisher, Defenders, Iron Fist.
Yeah, and Iron Fist is a write-off. We don't talk about that existing ever. Iron Fist and Defenders, good. Iron Fist and anything else, bad. Get rid of it. He's actually the one character in the Netflix universe I don't want to see return ever. Like we can
You
actually just
probably won't.
you can probably just scrub him from existence and forget that it ever happened. Um, Nothing against Finn Jones. He did an okay
Well, I
job. It
feel
was
like
his writing.
the good thing about Iron Fist is someone like Luke Cage is Luke Cage. Like you can't pass down the mantle of Luke Cage. Just like
Right.
you can't pass down the mantle of Daredevil. You can pass down the mantle of Iron Fist. In fact, we've already seen an animated Iron Fist in the Eyes of Wakanda TV series that wasn't the same one as Netflix because it's not about the person behind the mask, it's about the fighting style, techniques, and
Well,
powers.
it's also like the Steve Rogers thing too. Like it's a little different with Steve Rogers because it is a different Captain America each person who takes up the mantle. But Captain America is Captain America. It doesn't matter
Yeah,
who's
Captain
in it,
America is a mantle, not a individual person.
right? But like you're not gonna see anybody else other than you know Matt Murdock taking over the mantle of Daredevil.
Yeah,
And honestly, that's the one thing they got right with the first season was that they didn't recast any of the characters. They brought back John Bernthal, they brought back Charlie Cox, Deborah Ann Wolfe, Vincent D'Onofrio. They brought back that original cast. Now, look, I said it almost a year ago now. Daredevil Born Again had the unfortunate, at least it's season one, had the unfortunate thing of it being basically two different shows for one season. One set of writers filmed with one set of episodes that had nothing to do with the original series, so it didn't connect. And then we had another set that did connect to the original series and tried to tie it all together. That's why that first season was such a mess. And even for being a mess, it really wasn't all that bad. There were some moments in the show that you just thought were filler, meandering, didn't contribute much. And that's fine, but at least you still had some pretty good Daredevil action to get yourself through it. But when it did connect, it was a phenomenal show and it was really good. I said a year and a half ago, I'm not going to make any final decisions on Born Again until season 2 releases. And if season 2 releases and it's bad, then I can start judging it for not being the original series because now they have no excuse. Now they've had all this time to write with the same set of writers and connect it all together. They've had all this time to do it. So if you don't jump on it, you don't act on it, you don't try to fix the mistakes that the first season had, that's on you at this point.
well, and I feel like another problem that the show ran into, and this is coming from someone who didn't even watch it, just knowing about it from what you've told me, is that I understand why they chose the title Daredevil Born Again because it was technically about um like Charlie Cox's Daredevil becoming Daredevil again. But at the same time, Daredevil Born Again is the most popular Daredevil story ever, and it
Yeah,
is a very specific story. It's not like it's like what's a good example of I mean, any other example I can think about is a comic book, but like it is a self-contained for the most part Daredevil story.
sure.
When you put a name like that on a TV series with Daredevil in it, you would think they're going to adapt the comic book. And that's kind of what they
Sure.
originally pitched as well. They had art of Matt in styles similar to like the cover that everyone knows from Born Again. And then for the most part, from what I've heard, they really didn't do anything with
No,
other than
but
Matt being reborn.
well, and again, like I said, they already kind of touched over the Born Again comic in the original Daredevil show. So it's not like, and it's not the entire thing. Like I think the darker aspects of the Born Again comic weren't touched on. Most of the stuff that was like with Karen and whatnot wasn't touched on. But like the majority of what the Born Again, from my understanding, what the Born Again comic is, they did touch on like the pretty deep rooted themes in earlier seasons. It just wasn't Born Again. I think they chose it clearly because of the popularity of the comic book, the popularity of the name, and it fits for what they were trying to go. Instead of saying Daredevil Resurrection or just calling the show Daredevil again to confuse people, at least it all somewhat flows together. And it's again, it's a revival, so they chose it as a fun name. Not to say that you know, not to say that they probably were misleading with the title, but they did already technically adapt it. And if you're going to keep it in the same universe, you can't backtrack and do it again. I mean,
Yeah. No, and
I guess
again,
you very well could, it's just not preferred.
I think it was just a thing where you do kind of dig yourself into a little bit of a hole. And then obviously all the production issues that led to rewrites and reshoots and basically a refactoring of the entire season, which is what made it feel like two different seasons. It's not like we haven't had that before. I mean, literally, Brave New World was almost exactly that as well. It felt like two different movies smushed together because of reshoots. Like,
Yeah, to be fair, uh, Captain America was a little different just because they reshot the entire film, most of the entire film with very little being intact. Daredevil, like, kept what they had already filmed, and then they just kinda, like, added on to it with other stuff. So it was slightly different,
yeah.
but it does get you kind of the same result. I still think Born Again is better than Captain America, though. I don't think it's even close. Again, I don't hate not Born Again, Brave New World. Brave New World is fine. Like, there was nothing we had a vendetta against it, but we acknowledged that there was just like, oh, a lot of reshoots were definitely heavily implied. And honestly, the fact that it wasn't as bad as we thought it was going to be is still a plus considering the reshoots that went into it. And you feel it in Born Again, but Born Again also delivered when it was really good. It was really good. It's not like they did it, tried to make it flow together, and it didn't deliver. Kind of what Captain America did. Um, but the trailer, it sets up season 2 pretty well. We're back with Karen and Matt, and we get some shots of D'Onofrio as Kingpin and Vanessa. We get more shots with them. And we don't necessarily get an idea for where we're gonna go with this story. Um, we know some way somehow Jessica Jones is coming back into the fold because she's in the trailer. Um, Not that that was a surprise. They already had announced she was coming back, and there were leaked like set photos of her coming back. So it's not like it's a big surprise. If nothing was leaked, sure, keep her out of the trailer. But because it was already leaked, I'm not so mad about it. It's honestly fine.
Yeah.
Um, but we know she's coming back. She's playing a role. The only one we don't know who's coming back or not is Punisher, and that's because obviously he has his special coming up, and he's going to be in Brand New Day, which
He has to. He's probably not gonna play a main role, but I feel like he'll make an appearance. Either
well,
like first episode, middle episode, last episode. Like he'll make an
it
appearance.
just based on where the first season of Born Again left, I find it very hard without because it sets it up so perfectly for him to go into his spinoff or into Brand New Day that I just don't think he's gonna have a place in this next season unless, like you said, he just is written in for one scene or two scenes or whatever. He won't play as big of a role as he did in the last season. I can say for sure though.
Yeah.
Last
Well,
season
the
was
Punisher
specific for him to like come in.
the Punisher special still doesn't have a release date despite being, I'm pretty sure, entirely finished. And I think the reason, maybe the reason why, I don't know, is it either has to come out before Brand New Day, setting up why he's in Brand New Day,
Correct.
or it comes out after Brand New Day, wrapping up why he was in Brand New Day. Like it either I think that the end of the Punisher special is going to set him up into Brand New Day or be the come down from Brand New Day. And
So
I know that's not what
originally,
people want out of specials, but I feel like because we already know he's going to be in it, it would feel weird if they didn't.
So initially, from what I had heard, is it was originally going to be standalone. It was setting up his character up for Brand New Day, but really was still going to be its own story. You wouldn't have had to really worry about it. I also heard the rumor that it was coming out last fall slash winter.
Mhm.
That's when it was originally coming out. I never even heard about it getting delayed, and then I just completely forgot that it was happening until somebody said the Punisher special. I go, oh wait, wasn't that supposed to come out already? Now I'm hearing that it's supposed to come out after Brand New Day, which I don't know if that is. If I'm just stupid, that's originally when it was, but um,
Well, because it never I don't believe it ever had an official release date.
I know it had a rough timeline because they had said in interviews and various reports from like Just Jared, which is a very creditable news site for the most part when it comes to like things like that, where it's like, hey, they're rumoring or they're saying it's going to be like fall 2025. They never gave a specific date, but they were saying it's going to be this. And so I think we just all assumed it was going to be before Brand New Day. Now I really have no idea. Not that it matters too much. They have the original uh, people on the project coming in to work on the Punisher special, and again with John Berthal writing it, I have no doubt that that's not at least going to be entertaining at the very least. But it's an hour. It's no different than like 2 episodes of Born Again. It's just one special though. But I have utmost faith that that's going to be pretty good. But as far as Daredevil season 2 goes, like I already said it, prove to me that the first season was just because you had two different crews working on the show. Prove to me that's the reason why, and don't tell me that you are just gonna fall on your face, because I'm genuinely gonna be upset, because I love Daredevil to death. It's one of my favorite shows, period. I think it's incredible. Do not butcher this for me, for the love of God.
Yeah.
um in other news, other news from the world, this is fresh today.
Yeah.
um
I'm stamping when this episode is being recorded.
yeah, this is fresh from today. This was not even expected to happen, and here we are. The great Catherine O'Hara passed away earlier
Yeah.
today. I don't I read, my dad had also read that it was just like a some small illness, which in today's day and age, anything and everything can can cause things. But it's really unfortunate that's her, because she was very, very talented. She had a long, great career.
Yeah.
Vast, iconic characters.
Well, and
The
as
mom,
far as I know, it wasn't like a thing where it was like announced a while ago that she had cancer or anything like that. It was
no,
this feels, at least to me, very sudden. Like when I read that news today, I was like, wait, Catherine O'Hara, like, what? She's not even like that old. Like me and Carson got into a debate before this episode started on what old is. She's only 71, which doesn't sound that old, but like, or it doesn't sound young, but it's also not that old.
yeah,
And
it's like
it,
that morally gray area where it's like it's up to your interpretation of what you classify as old by that point. You know,
yeah, but
um,
obviously Catherine O'Hara, best known for the mom in Home Alone. That was one of her, I don't want to call it breakout roles, but kind of breakout role. Also the mom from Beetlejuice as well. Those are the main two roles that I know her from.
so
I know she's been in other
she's
things.
also Sally in A Nightmare Before Christmas, which is
Yes, that's it.
it
Yeah, that's another one.
in my mind, that's actually her biggest role. I think she's
Really?
I granted, I love that movie, so it's
I was gonna
very
say, I feel like her
that might be
pinnacle role is well, I'd say it's probably Beetlejuice, just because of like in Home Alone, she doesn't play a huge role just because that it's not her
it
movie.
depends.
She has her appearance scenes and she has her iconic screams for Kevin. But for the most part, it's not her movies, so she's not in them all that much. I think she's in the later ones a little bit more than the first one,
It depends.
but Beetlejuice, she's pretty present. And then she obviously revised her role in this most recent Beetlejuice.
Look, it depends on what
So,
you look at as she's just an iconic actress in general, but it just depends on what you see as her greatest accomplishment. Some people are going to say it's Home Alone because of how iconic that role is. Some people are going to say Beetlejuice. I don't think that a lot of people are. She's great in Beetlejuice, but I think that she does have better roles. Some people are going to say Nightmare for Christmas. I think there's also a huge camp, and I know just because you never watched the show, you probably don't even know that she's in it. There's a huge camp out there that would say Schitt's Creek, because
I heard that she was in Schitt's Creek. I've never seen Schitt's Creek, but
there is a huge following of that show. I feel like a lot of people would say that that's probably her best role. I don't personally think so. I think she's phenomenal in it, but I just think as far as like a well-rounded, like iconic best role, yeah, I mean, I'd still say Nightmare Before Christmas, but that again, I'm biased because I really appreciate that film and what it does. I will say it is a little depressing when you realize as far as I know, I didn't look this up, so I'm going based off of my mind. What was the very last project that she was in, Brandon? This is a project that you have seen last year.
last year.
Yep.
I don't I like I can picture her
Oh,
in a role, but you're gonna have to tell me.
The Last of Us season 2 was the last project
I
she
mean that
has
yeah,
ever worked on.
that's not unfortunate. I enjoyed The Last of Us season 2, okay?
I
That's
enjoy
some
portions of
BS.
The Last of Us season 2.
I don't know. I really enjoyed all of The Last of Us season 2, but it's also because I went in knowing nothing about season 2 other than big spoiler warning, Joel's death. That's like the only thing I knew from season 2. So, I went in having no expectations as opposed to you who watched gameplay of it and knew the story going in.
I not
So,
only knew the story going into it and what to expect, but I was even like, "Oh, they can, this is gonna be great. They're gonna write it very well. It's gonna be shot very well." And for the most part, it was fine. And then you have some really there's some moments, and then there's some moments,
I mean, we
but then
talked
there's
about it
also
on the
some moments.
podcast. So,
Yeah,
if you want to hear our full thoughts, go watch
listen
those
to our thoughts on
episodes.
that. I'm a bit
Yeah.
hard. I will say it's not going to do justice now. I'm a bit harder on it now than I was when I first watched it. I still this is such a meander. Everything with Joel, I still think is top tier television. Like it is phenomenal. And that one episode when it's like the backflash with both of them is
Mhm.
so darn good and so appealing. And even that final episode, I don't actually hate that final episode. It's okay. Um, but there's a lot. There's just a lot. That's a different conversation, different day.
That's
Probably
that's a different conversation from today. Rest in peace, Catherine O'Hara. I feel really bad for using this as a transition, and this is why I didn't want to talk about her death last, because now I have the utmost pleasure of transitioning from an unfortunate death to what's up, Nimrods? It's your boys back with another episode of the Nerdy Nimrods podcast, the only podcast on the internet where your two favorite Nimrods talk all things nerdy. I'm your host for today's episode, Brandon, aka Parrotfish, here with my forever co-host
Carson, aka Juggernaut.
And today we have two, I wouldn't call heavy hitters, but I would say, spoiler alert, unexpected hits of the year with Wonderman and Send Help. Excited to talk about both of these. But before we get into that, I'm going to do two things. One, do something that we've forgotten to do the past few episodes, which is give a big spoiler warning. If you have not seen Wonder Man or Send Help, don't watch the episode. There will be timestamps. Skip around. We don't do non-spoiler segments. We just talk about it. Do with that what you will. Recommend going in unspoiled for both of these properties as much as you can, but to each their own. And since we have a little bit of time, not a ton of time, how are you, Carson?
Tired.
Yeah, I'm exhausted, and I have to board a flight in less than 12 hours to not even
I
be in Florida for I'll be there for more than 48 hours, but less than 72.
I'm tired. I've seen a lot of television and movies in the past 24 hours. More
Yeah,
more than I care to admit.
well, I mean, it was 4 hours of Wonder Man, a little less than 4 hours, and then 2 hours of Send Help. So, not the worst.
It seems like longer, but I know it wasn't. It seems like longer though. It does.
Yeah, fair enough. But
Um,
with that being said, we are starting with Send Help. I know Carson really wanted to end with Send Help, but it is one movie versus 8 episodes of television, and I won the
yeah.
argument because I'm better. So,
I don't think
Carson,
that's what we agreed on, but yeah. I mean,
no, I
sure.
think I'm pretty sure the exact words that came out of your mouth is, "Brandon, you are so much a better human being than me. I think you are like God's gift to the earth. So I'm gonna let you make the decision because you only can make correct decisions." I'm pretty sure those were the words that
I
left
mean,
your mouth.
I've said that not in this context of the conversation, but I have said that before. Yes.
Yes. But with all that being
Oh.
said, I'm gonna go ahead and kick it off to you, Carson, to give your review of Send Help.
Dylan O'Brien's ass cheeks and testicles. That's what I'm going to start off this review. Uh, I don't really know how I'm going to transition out of that. I'm just going to start
Gonna
over
say, what was
again
your plan there? What was your plan?
to
Yes,
make a funny.
to be fair, his balls not in the movie. His ass cheeks sure as hell are. There's some prolonged shots on his ass cheeks. We'll review those later.
No,
Special ass cheek review section coming later in
well,
the.
we actually broke our cardinal rule a little bit with this film. We did kind of say yesterday what our thoughts were on this film, just
You did.
because.
I didn't.
That's true. I did. I love this film. I again went into this movie after seeing the trailers going, it looks okay. It can't be that good. And walking out of it, I went, I'm putting my faith and trust back into Sam Raimi again because holy crap. I forget how good like of a master of horror he truly is. Again, the Evil Dead franchise, Ash vs. Evil Dead, all of that was his. I mean, his idea, his brainchild. He came up with it, and now he's back to his. I guess you could classify this as a horror. I'd say it's still more so of a thriller rather than a horror. It has a few scares, a few jumps, and trust me, you do jump, but nothing screams like, oh, this is absolutely a horror movie with constant jump scares and more like the Evil Dead. It's more so of a thriller where it's like, okay, these two people are in an isolated area and they're trying to survive. Obviously, you have the tension of like the fact that they both basically hate each other in a lot of ways to see if it works. And Sam Raimi is the perfect director for it. Again, he did the Evil Dead franchise. He's already mastered the craft of being in an isolated area and creating tension and horror. Uh, he just does so many incredible things with just the shots and the way it's directed. You feel every intention, every piece of dialogue with this film. This film is written impeccably too. There were a lot of audible gasps in my theater, a lot of screaming from me. I mean, there's a lot of twists and turns in this film. I also was not expecting to see this film take. So much so that your lead in the movie, Rachel McAdams, incredible. I actually have never seen her do anything like this before as far as performances. I'm sure she may have done something before. This is the first time I've ever seen her do anything different from like the romantic leads. So it's just absolutely incredible. So much so, like this film is just so well crafted that by the end of the film, I honestly didn't know who I wanted to root for because Dylan O'Brien's character is so dumb and such a jerk, but also you can't help but feel slightly bad for him because of the fact that, like, oh my god, that's what's so well done about this film is Rachel McAdams screws up so bad by first off not getting him off the island, deciding to stay there, then trying to kill him, trying to keep him there, change the life, whatever. He was a jerk. So that I mean, I don't know. My thoughts for this film are so polarizing when it comes to the two of them because I don't know genuinely like did I want her to win? Did I want him to win? I don't know because they both were at fault in a lot of ways for things that happened. Even though morally, Rachel McAdams is objectively the better pick because you're trying to side with her. That's what the movie at least is implying for you to do. But objectively, you do sit there going, "Do it? Like, is she doing the right thing? Is this the right person to follow?" I don't know. The score is really good. The use of gore is a bit over the top. Not that I hate it. It's very Sam Raimi, but it's a bit over the top. There's a lot of times that you sit there flinching. I was tossing and turning in my seat, just like and I didn't know what to do. Again, I need more time to think about it. It's so new, and we've only had a few movies that we've actually seen in the new year. I think, oh my god, I think I like Send Help more than Bone Temple, but I really like Bone Temple, so I don't know. It's really hard because both are very similar in a lot of ways, and I like both equally for different reasons. I'd have to actually think about it and sit down and maybe even watch both again to decide that. Um, but all in all, Send Help, at least from my point of view, was a very, very It's a very Sam Raimi movie, is what I'll say.
Fair enough. Well, Send Help to me was a okay to good movie with amazing moments in it. That evens out to a pretty good movie. I think that my biggest problems with the movie is a lot of the setup and some of the storytelling moments are very heavy-handed. It is very much like there is nuance with some of the later things, but I feel like getting to the island and setting all of that up was just so unnecessarily heavy-handed and kind of made me knowing where we ended up kind of made the first 30 to 45 minutes of this movie feel like a drag that I did not enjoy watching. And it was you can say, "Oh, well, you need to set everything up," but it felt too heavy-handed. Like the shots of all the survivor stuff, them watching the survivor thing as they crashed, forcing us to know that she's a survival expert. Didn't love those decisions. Some of the cinematography in certain moments really took me out of the moment in some of the fear times where I'm supposed to be scared, but I'm like, okay, why are you shooting this like this? But at the same time, there were also shots that were really well done and really impressed me for some of the building tension, building fear moments. I think the story is expected at points and unexpected at points. And I think it's kind of hard because, again, I think a lot of the expected comes from that original, I'd say, half of the movie before you kind of get to the point in which you know, okay, this is kind of where I think the story is going to go. And then there are certain things that happen, like when his fiance comes to the island, that like actually had me shocked. Like when that happened, that was like the first moment that I was like, okay, I'm actually blown away by what's happening here. And maybe I guess I could say the castration one was also one of those scenes, but I think that there are a lot of amazing moments, and I think where this movie ends, like where it ends and where it ends up, is really well done. It's very well set up, and as Carson said, you don't know who to root for in this movie. You think you know at the start of this movie, and then you get to the end of the movie, and you're like, should I feel good about this? Like, should I be happy that this is how the movie ended? Because they're both sympathetic, but they're also both assholes and both psychopaths to a degree. I mean, actually, I'd say only one of them is a psychopath. The other one is just an asshole. So it does make it hard to be like, I want to root for someone. And I don't, and maybe this is just me, I don't know if the movie was intending for us to root for someone over the other. But I don't hate that I didn't know who to root for. I actually kind of enjoyed the fact that I'm sitting there at the end of the movie going, well, shit, good for her, but also bad. So, like, I think overall, and I'm excited to talk more about, like, I saw your face during some of the things I was talking about, like, more of the things that I had problems with. But I think overall, I walked out of this movie. I enjoyed watching it. I squirmed a lot. I got jumped a lot. I had fun with it. But overall, I don't think that when the year wraps up, it'll be like a top 10 movie for me.
Yeah. Um,
So we
you,
can start off with where I saw your face get shocked the most, and that was when I was talking about some of the cinematography bothering me. So I can
yeah.
give you
Give me
specific
moments.
examples.
Okay.
The biggest one for me was, and I understand what you're probably going to counter with. I'm just saying how I felt in the moment. I did not love how the boar scene was shot. When she's hunting the boar, there was some moments in that I get that they're a little loose and trying to build up tension and showing how hectic it is, and they were following the boar's perspective. I don't have a ton of problem with that, but there were some stylistic choices that were made in there that are hard to like describe specifically, but just like as I felt it in the moment, I was like, I don't love, like, this doesn't feel like it's building tension to me. It feels goofy. And maybe that's what they were going for, but to me, it didn't feel like it was supposed to be a goofy moment. And it kind of felt like it was shot goofier than I would have wanted it to be. So that's kind of one of my big examples of it. I also think, and again, this is a personal preference in movies. I don't love overuse of shooting in on actors' faces during certain moments.
Oh
And
no,
I think,
that's Sam Raimi though. Like unfortunately, that is a preference thing for you. That is just Sam Raimi. That's what he
yeah,
loves to
because like
do.
the biggest example of that one for me is when they're standing on the cliff and the fiance is about to fall down and the guy's trying to save her. And in order to like build up tension, you don't know what's going on. We just like oddly zoom up into her face. And it also feels like the camera quality kind of changes and it just feels a little weird and didn't build tension. It kind of took away tension for me. Again, these are personal preferences and I can understand why you wouldn't have a problem with that. I'm just talking about those some of those choices I wasn't as like gripped by, and it kind of took me out of moments that I wish I was engaged with more. Like, I get that it can sound like small nitpicks, but when these are like big, important moments and it took me out of it a little bit, I can't help but be like, that detracted from my experience.
Well, and honestly, I can't nitpick any of those. Like even the Boar one, even though I do think that it's objectively wrong, even that one's opinionated. Like straight up, that if you just don't like how it's shot, then that's you just don't like the direction. You don't like how it's shot. I can't help that.
Yeah.
That like all the things that you listed off are very big Sam Raimi things that even happen. The one complaint I will say about this film, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, there's a lot of moments it's okay. Most of the CGI in this movie is really bad. And that's
Yeah.
honestly that's just a Sam Raimi thing. I don't know if he just doesn't like to use CGI or if he tries to make it look campy on purpose. Evil Dead constantly is notorious for having bad CGI. If you look at Ash vs Evil Dead, he purposefully has a CGI bad because it's supposed to be more goofy and
Yeah,
horror
well,
at
that's
the
what I was
same
gonna say.
time.
For that movie, I know it's supposed to be more of a comedy horror movie.
Yeah.
This, like, yes, it is a dark comedy movie, and there were points in time where I laughed, but it was more of like that uncomfortable dark type of laugh, not like a ha ha ha, that's a really funny joke type of thing.
Yeah, but that's his
In
type of humor. So I
No,
again
no,
like
I know, and I'm not
that's
saying
why I'm
that.
just
I'm
like I
just
don't
saying
know.
like yeah, no, but I agree with you on the CGI thing for sure. I definitely think that there were just some moments with CGI that I was like, okay, you could have done that better. I can see the fact that that is fake when it probably didn't need to be, but that didn't take me out of the movie as much.
Well, and again,
Um,
that's the thing is like all the things that you said are like things that like I guess I could rebuke, but I can't because there's such an opinionated thing. Like
well, I guess okay, one
we've
thing.
never run into that problem before where it's like, okay, if we can blame the writing or blame this, like usually we can find ways out of it. I generally don't know how to reboot what you said because it literally is just like a preference thing. If you don't like it, you don't like it. If people don't like Quentin Tarantino's direction, I'm not going to argue with him on it. Tarantino, I would say, is a choice director. It's the same thing with Wes Anderson. If you don't like his films, it's a choice direction. It just depends.
Well,
Every
and
director is different.
one thing that we can talk about that was a pretty big negative for me, probably I would admittedly say my biggest negative that I'm curious to see if you rebuke or if you agree or if you think it's just a preference thing again, is the setup of this movie. And like
Yeah,
the
that I
opening like 30 I guess ish minutes basically until they get to the island,
it's
and
like 15.
it it isn't like a thing where I'm like, "Oh, this is stupid. It's a bad setup. I hate what they're going for. I hate the themes of this movie." None of that. It's just how heavy-handed it is. It just feels specifically with the setting up that she's a survivalist. It literally felt like they were guzzling it with a funnel down our throats with long shots on Survivor and make her talk like all I needed was the one scene of her sitting on the sofa getting excited to watch Survivor. I didn't need a panning shot of all of her outdoor things and then them watching her Survivor audition and then all of this. Like it felt like a okay, I get the point. Move on.
It's not so you're also looking at it from the perspective of at least I believe based on how you're describing it, based on the complaints, because I've heard things like this before. The way you're looking at it is the heavy-handedness of, oh, it's just trying to tell us that, oh, she knows how to survive on her own because she watches Survivor. That really that is a point of it, obviously. That's not the main point. The audition specifically was to really set up, oh, she like is in love with Survivor. Like this means
Mhm.
everything to her, which also comes back later whenever it's the not yet, I don't want to leave. It's not just the fact that she wants to be trapped on the island with Dylan O'Brien or Bradley.
Yeah.
It's not just that she wants to be trapped on the island with Bradley. She's living her dream of being on Survivor without anybody. Obviously, nobody's there to see it, but she's literally living her dream, putting the skills that she earned to the test. And I guess you could say heavy-handed. That is a preference thing. I think that's objectively, in my mind, I don't see how it's heavy-handed. I don't know. That's a hard one. I guess I don't
Again, I think
necessarily
it's
see
just
it
like
as
a
that.
I understand the counter of it's to set up that it's more than just a hobby. It's a like she's in love with it, and if it and that's what leads her to not want to leave the island. But at the same time, like there's other than just the loving survivor thing, there were other reasons why she didn't want to leave the island that I feel like you
Yeah.
leaned into just as equally, to the point in which I feel like if you focused even not even I'm not even saying focus less. And again, maybe this is another thing where, because I knew that we were going to end up on the island eventually, that first 45 minutes at points when they're just feeling heavy-handed, because I know they end up on the island, I'm like, okay, you're just like spelling it out in plain writing that of course we're going to end up on the island. But we also, the whole marketing campaign was the island. We barely saw any of the office stuff.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That no, that is just stupid. Like, they end up on the island. I don't care. Like that's like
Well, no,
it-
no, no. What I'm saying is, again, it to me in the moment, it felt less like a setting up of her just being in love with Survivor to pay off later for her being crazy, and more of a, guys, we're gonna end up on an island. These skills are gonna come in handy later. Mickey Mouse tool that we can use for later, as opposed to like a, no, she's a psychopath who is obsessed with Survivor. Because like, again, there are also other reasons why she wanted to stay on the island other than just Survivor.
I guess, yeah. I hear what you're saying. I don't necessarily see those as complaints. I honestly didn't even really think about them until you brought them up. But even thinking about them, I'm like, I don't really necessarily see that. Like, I don't see any of it as a bad thing. The survivor aspect, because I look at it from a very different perspective. I don't dislike that. I don't hate it. I actually think it's perfectly fine. It sets up the point. And the added survivor thing later is also just set up Dylan O'Brien being even more of a jerk.
Yeah, that
Uh
is true. That is true.
and the scenes in the office are all really well done because Bradley doesn't come in, like, obviously it's Linda for a very very good portion of like the first 15 minutes of the movie. Then Bradley comes in and he's presented as this, nicer, sweeter guy until he enters his office. Then it becomes
Yeah.
basically a disaster, and you realize he's not the nice guy at all. He's just there to make a buck, picking the remnants of what his father left behind, and that's it. Um,
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because, and this is like this is a another like preference thing. Again, like most of my things with this movie are preference things, but this isn't a knock against the movie. It's just like a funny anecdote that I'll throw in there. I have horrible, horrible, almost debilitating secondhand embarrassment.
yes,
So the most terrifying part of this movie for me, other than maybe the castration scene, was the office portions of the movie, watching her embarrass herself. I squirmed so much because here's the thing. This is going to sound horrible. It is. And I want to have a chance to explain myself. Dylan O'Brien's character is an asshole. He is a dickhead. He is
yes,
terrible.
yes,
However, his point about needing a VP that is presentable and can talk to shareholders is a valid one when the person that's supposed to be getting promoted to VP shows up with food on her face, undone hair, and is talking like a madman, bringing up uncomfortable topics of conversation in the office. I understand that that is still no reason to look down on her, especially when she was originally promised it. But at the same time, she also isn't like, she's very, very intelligent, but also she's not a people person. And that to
yeah,
me was just like a, I'm not saying like, oh, I agree with the decision that he didn't pick her for VP or whatever, but it was like a, no, he's kind of not entirely, like, he's going about it the wrong way, and he's definitely a dick, and his intention versus what he's saying are two different things. But at the same time, you clearly are a crazy cat lady who lives alone, eats food at her
yeah,
desk, leaves it on your face, and isn't very professional whatsoever. Clearly, people in the office don't like you. That's not someone you want to be your VP. And so
right,
that kind of made it, for me, not difficult to root for her on the island, but it was a thing where I was always 50-50. I was always I understand where she's coming from and I understand where he's coming from, but I also equally kind of don't like both of you at most of this movie. So that's just a me thing. And it's not a complaint, it's just like an observation thing, but
Yeah, I didn't really start going 50-50 until after she basically was like, "No, not yet. I want to stay in the island." I was like, "Okay, no, this is just horrible." And then I really was 50-50 whenever she basically killed the fiance, and I was like, "Okay, wow, that's like
well,
he
she
is completely justified whenever he finds his fiance's body buried in the sand with the diamond ring." I'm like, first off, my thought in the
oh yeah.
theater was you couldn't have buried the hand. You had
Well,
to leave it sticking out.
she didn't bury the body. Specifically, she did not bury the body. The fiance fell off a cliff, presumably into the ocean, and got washed up on shore and buried by the sand.
Gotcha.
She did
Okay.
not bury the body at all.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, at least that's my read on it. I don't think she would just randomly bury her with her hand up in the ocean. It's not a good place to bury a body, knowing that the tides can change things. To me, that cliff, she fell, got washed up, buried in the sand. That's
I
how
mean,
I read it.
that's hopefully what it is. Unfortunately, the movie never explained it, so it really just depends on how you look at it. I'm gonna look at it the way you just said it because that makes first off slightly bit more sense. Secondly, it ignores a very big plot hole of why didn't you bury the hand if
Well,
it
yeah,
was
and
the fact
again,
that you buried it.
that's why to me it's not a plot hole. It's a oh, the body fell off. Because again, like when the fiance fell off, she was like in shock. She was not like well, technically, we thought she was in shock up until he found the hand, and then afterwards, like you kind of already knew that she intentionally killed her. One thing I will say, and I think this was done really well, is there was a point in time when watching this movie that I thought after she returns that the fiance was going to walk up. Like there was a decent amount of I'd say 4 to 5 minutes after she returns to the island after walking on the ledge that I was like is the fiance going to show up? There's no way she did that. Like there's no way she let her there's no way she let her fall. Oh wait, the fiance's not. Oh wait. Oh, 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 oh.
Yeah, when she
Okay,
comes back,
that sucks. Oh, well, now you're not redeemable at all.
yeah,
Now you just murdered 2 people.
there was also a moment in the movie in which I sat there in the theater. I looked at my friend, and we both went, "Frick you, Sam Raimi! Frick you!" And that's the stupid jump scare with the
Dude,
corpse in the dream sequence because
I
it's so unnecessary and it just gets you randomly.
I jumped so hard. So hard. And I wasn't the only one because it is the technically the boar is a jump scare, but not really. It is really the
Yeah,
only, in my opinion, true jump scare. And it was horrifying because it was so unnecessary and unexpected. Because you think we've handled the fiance on the beach thing, and you're like already shaken up and on edge. And then all of a sudden, the zombie, like a weird zombie jumps out at you. That also, mind you, that's another point in the movie where like I was so terrified that I didn't really hate it all that much. The effects, I couldn't tell if it was practical or not. Looked a little weird, but like again, that's like a not neither here nor there thing. But did you think? Because I did. I thought that that was the real fiance. I didn't think that that was a dream. I thought it
there's
was the
a
real fiance climbing out for a small period of time.
there was a
There was a point
small
before it
period.
was revealed that I was like, she's not real, but
There was a small period in like I think maybe like the first 5 seconds. I actively was just upset that she was alive. I was like, "You gotta be kidding! She could not have survived that fall." And not only could she not have survived it, she would not be walking ashore as calmly as she did. Obviously, I was wrong,
she didn't
and
survive it. But
right, and very, very quickly, I was like, "Oh, no, this is totally a dream," which furthermore should have added the fact of like, "Oh, there's totally gonna be a jump scare here." No, no, I'm just an idiot. Um, and for whatever reason, I don't know why it's Sam Raimi too, so I should have expected it. Again, that's the only moment in the film I've actively went there and went, "Dude, frick you, Sam Raimi. What why?
yeah.
Why do this to me? Come on, man." But no, there was like 5 seconds I actually believed. I was like, "Okay, yeah, this is her." And then like 5 seconds later, I was like, no, wait, it's a dream. There's no way. It's just not physically possible. Because I was genuinely upset. Like I was peeved. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Why would you do this? So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Well, and like there were other like I think like we're just gonna talk about like the big moments as we always do, but like skipping not towards the end, but when she is giving him the tour of the island and explains the berries, I'm obviously like, the berries are going to come back. There's no reason they would spend this
yes,
much time. And that's another one of those moments that I'm not detracting it from the movie. It is kind of just like another obvious, movies do this all the time, introduce thing that is going to come back later. Came back pretty soon after. But I have another question for you. I love asking you questions because I just want
yeah,
to know,
yeah.
did you put it together that there was obviously not poisonous vines where those rocks were, or did you think that there were poisonous rocks, or did
No,
you put it
I
together
did.
after it was introduced?
I didn't think anything of it because I thought that that was a brushed over detail because we were fixating on the berries and the cliff and all the things that were happening. The over there, there's just poisonous vines. Don't go over there. Whatever. I mean, you can if you want, but like that's the other thing is the way they phrased it was like, I mean, you can go over there, but there's like poisonous vines and things. There's nothing really helpful. I wasn't thinking about it because they brushed over that very quickly. Like it
See,
wasn't.
I
They didn't
maybe
linger
this is
on
just
that for
me.
they.
Immediately clocked it immediately. I was like, I thought that there would be a just a dock or like a full ass resort over there. And it's kind of a mix. It was a mansion house, but like I will say I clocked it immediately, which didn't detract from the reveal whatsoever. It was kind of just like a because at that point in the movie, the fact that there's a house is the least of my concerns.
Right,
So it
right,
wasn't like
yeah.
a oh no, I can't believe I guessed there was a house. It was more of a like, well, she just stabbed him, so we need to deal with that.
There's I think in that sequence specifically, again, I can't say it any differently. They just brushed over that line so quickly that I didn't really have time to think about it because they were
Yeah.
already on to the next thing, which I think was the poisonous berries. Like they
Yes.
walked up the cliff, they said, "Don't go over there with poisonous berries. If you want to know what's poisonous, here, you do this." Like they brushed over it so quickly, I just wasn't having time to think about it, nor did I think about it because they never brought it up again. It's not like here's the thing: if they also had brought it up, which in typical movie fashion they do this, if they had brought it up again in the future by saying, by the way, you said there was poisonous things over there. You know what kind of things or whatever. Then I would have started thinking about it a bit more because they would have brought it up again a second time. It was one
Yeah.
line. It's a throwaway line, and it happened so quickly that I was not even able to really think about it. With all the chaos that was happening in that scene, which I know was intentional, so that you weren't possibly thinking about it. So that
Well, and
when
I
we get to
think
the reveal, I mean, yeah,
maybe it's just me on the reason why I immediately clocked that there was something over there, but it was because I knew the berries were going to come back. Like it was so obvious that the berries were going to come back that I was like, okay, there's a very high chance that that ridge over there also comes back because these are probably both setups for later. One just came back way later than the other. Now, I will say,
again,
when the
yeah,
berries
but
did come back, that was another thing that I looked down at that plate of food and went, oh, he poisoned her for sure. And then she started like getting woozy, and I was like, oh, he poisoned her. And then I did not know what was going to happen exactly. I just knew that he was going to poison her. When he pulls out the raft, goes, fuck you, hops in the ocean. I'm sitting there being like, man, I can't wait to see this motherfucker die like a dumbass.
yeah, no, I mean, I look most of the, and this is just me because this is how I have to watch movies now. I try not to like predict what happens in movies. It's if I do, it's because the movie is very usually very poorly written, or I just
Yeah.
happen to guess what it is. That's most of the time when it comes to films when I predict stuff. Otherwise, if it's like well written or clever enough, I'm able to turn my brain off and I don't have to think about it too much. I know I'm also a rare breed though. There are a lot of people in this world that go into movies and all they do is predict because they can't accept the realm that your movie's in. I have a friend who's very much like that, and that's why he can't sit through most Marvel movies because he can't simply turn his brain off to just enjoy it. You got to nitpick
See,
every little thing, you got to predict every little thing that happens, and that just ruins movies for me.
I
Um,
for me, I don't try at all. Like it's not like I'm sitting there trying to pick apart a movie. It's just the way that my brain absorbs media where
yeah,
I see them point out a berry and I go, "Yep, that's coming back." And then I see them I've also taken film classes before. So like maybe it's just that like I'm taught to look out for things in storytelling elements. So maybe that's another factor. But
Yeah.
talking about some of the like other positive things that I wasn't expecting, we've already had referenced it enough. Let's just talk about it. She tried to castrate that man, and it was
Dil-
fucking horrifying.
She was gonna do
I
some horrible
almost
things.
puked.
Dude, she was gonna do some horrible things to Dylan's O'Brien's, man. I mean, I
The like
mean,
that whole scene was so well done because like this is as I'm watching this, I'm thinking this in my head as things are happening. I'm like, oh, I didn't expect that to happen. I didn't expect that to happen. Like every single escalation of what's happening in a million years would have never predicted that that was what was going to happen. Like I didn't expect the poisonous octopus because they put me very much at ease. Then
yeah.
I didn't expect him to like lay it like this. And then she pulls his pants off, and I was like, is she about to rape this man? And then she starts talking about the dog, and I was like, wait, is she what? And then she starts doing it, and I'm like sitting in my chair, mouth on the floor, like looking at the dudes next to me, also squirming in their chairs. And then she pulls the rat up, and I literally in the theater at full volume go, fuck you, movie. At full volume in the theater.
That's one of those scenes that you just sit there going, "What am I watching? Why am I watching this?" And when it's over, you go, "Why did I watch that?
Yep.
Why?" And it's not like it's like in a bad way. It makes perfect sense, but it's just one of those things of like, "Are you? Oh my god, no!
Well, because
Don't do this!
you
Don't do
also
this
have to
movie!"
remember, this is before this is like right before the fiance comes to the island. So like this was already setting her up to be pretty I think up until this point you could have redeemed both characters. I think they had both done bad things. I think obviously her not wanting to leave the island was bad, but I still do think both characters were relatively redeemable even with him trying to kill her. For him, that was one of those things that was like definitely pretty far on the like irredeemable thing. But like as I'm sitting there in that moment, like watching her castrate him, even after it was revealed that she wasn't, I was like, I can't root for you for the entire rest of this movie. There's like no point in time. And that's why it was so hard when I did root for her and hope that she didn't kill the fiance. And I was like, please, fiance, please walk out. And then I was sitting there like, God, I was hoping you would prove me wrong. And I was hoping the fiance would just walk out. And you're just a murderer. You are just a murderer.
Yeah, I don't know. There was a part of me that was sitting there just thinking like, "Oh my god!" Specifically, like before the boat, before the raft, specifically came into play. I was sitting there thinking, okay, so the next thing that's going to happen is somebody's going to find them and she's going to kill the person. And then he pulls out the raft and I go, I have no idea where this movie's going anymore. I'm like completely, and eventually it got back to the path of what I thought it was going to be. But like it completely just went in a direction. I was like, okay, so he was lying the whole time. And I hated that for a small second. I was like, you guys were acting so well to each other. And this was very entertaining. And then I go, oh, he just
You
did
have
that.
to remember there's another like hour and a half of this movie
Yeah,
that's a psychological thriller movie. Like,
man, we must be over an hour. There's an hour left. What's
yep.
happening? Yeah, no, there was a big portion during that section. I was like, oh man, you gotta be kidding me. But it's not like they didn't set it up. He obviously was sneaking off to go build the raft. You saw him building something in the woods whenever, especially after the
Yeah.
cave. You knew something was gonna happen.
Hmm.
I didn't expect it to be the raft, but I didn't know what else it would have been. But I knew obviously something was going to happen because that's the way they were
Yeah.
setting it up. But it does hurt either way because you're like, oh god,
Well, and I think a lot of it is also like their dynamic was it was the most interesting part of this movie, hands down, without question, just because they're both, again, they're both bad people, but one's a psychopath and one's an asshole. And there is kind of a clear person you want to root for at the end of the movie, but like watching two bad people go back and forth. And it's funny because the asshole, every time you think he grows and learns, he doesn't, and he retracts and he doesn't change. And with the psychopath, every time you think that she's like, oh, she's finally going to do the right thing, she retracts and she does something bad. And it's again, it's two people refusing to change. We love talking about that on the podcast, watching movies and TV where people refuse to change. And it's exactly what happens with these two characters. But it's just like one of them is a psychopath and one of them is an asshole.
To be fair, because you asked this question, I'm just curious. Which person did you expect / want to win by the end of this?
I
Because I have an answer, and
thought,
you may not like it.
no. So my answer was I thought at the end when she's holding the gun to him that he was going to throw. I knew that he was going to have the bull's horn. I
Yeah.
thought he was going to throw it at her, take the gun, blammo. I thought that that was how it was going to end, and he was going to leave the island. Is that how I wanted it to end? I'm going to be dead ass with you. I don't even know. That's just what I thought was going to happen. I don't even know if that's how I wanted it to end. That was just, I'm sitting there being like, I feel like this is how the movie's going to end. And then he does some of that. He takes the gun and points it at her. And when he pulls the trigger and it doesn't shoot, I was like, fuck you, movie. Oh, fuck you. And I think for me, and not to cut you off, but I'll let you because this kind of ties into my thoughts. I was shocked by the end of this, like the last 5 minutes or less of this movie, because I am also torn on it, I guess is why I'm shocked, is because her whole thing, the entire movie, is I don't want to leave this island. I am living my dream. I don't want to leave this island. Her main obstacle that would have forced her to leave the island is dead now. She can go back, clean this all up. She clearly cleaned it up well enough that the owner of the house doesn't know this happened. So she clearly can clean it up well enough to move on anyway and then go out and live the rest of her life on the island. So when we cut to her on the golf course, I was really shocked and I was disappointed in the moment. And I've kind of mellowed out to it at the end where I'm like, I don't hate it. I understand why they made that decision. But like, I don't know. That's just kind of like my thoughts in general. And we can talk about like back and forth. But like, what was your expectations / hopes at the end of this movie?
I wanted Bradley to win and get away with it.
Yeah.
I wanted that. I really wanted that at the end because I feel like out of everybody, strange enough, even though he was a jerk, he deserved so much in that ending. She killed his fiance. She purposefully
Yep.
trapped him there. Rightfully, I would kind of be pissed, like out of my mind. Here's the thing. Yeah, he went to go kill her, but I mean, if you're alone on an island or you think you're alone on an island, you would.
Yeah.
Like, that makes perfect logical sense. She's taught you how to survive on your own at this point, yada, 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 whatever. I mean, it just made perfect logical sense. I fully wanted and expected him at the very end to kind of get his revenge, especially because they were also hyping up to be Rachel McAdams as kind of like this hunter and he's
Yeah.
being hunted.
And they would kind of like flip the script and he would win. Which, like, okay, I guess to further your thoughts on that, how do you feel? Not about her winning necessarily, but about how she leaves the island and that's the end of the movie.
Oh, I really like it. I actually like that ending. Like, here's, you know what it feels like to me? You remember Injustice 2? Remember when that game came
Mhm.
out and you could kind of pick your ending for like, okay, did you want Batman to win or did you want Superman to win? And they both have like justified stories for that specific character. Like Batman winning, Superman goes back into the ICU, Brainiac's defeated. They don't kill Brainiac, but they lock him away or whatever,
Mhm.
and the good guys win. Superman's also a good guy, and Brainiac did a lot of horrible things, so and killed a lot of people, so it's justified that Superman would want to put him down. It's not justified that he ends up being enslaving Batman into his army using Brainiac's tech. It basically turns
Yeah.
him into Brainiac himself. But I think that the ending of the film kind of invokes that, where it's like if Bradley had won, okay, but if she also had won, I'm not upset about it, especially if you build to that ending specifically where it's like, okay,
Well,
she is on top, she's the president, she's whatever. And
I'm not talking about necessarily the fact that she won. I'm just saying that, like, her entire character, the entire movie is, I don't want to leave this island. And then you end this movie with her leaving the island.
oh no, that's fine. Again, that was always gonna happen eventually, especially once you find out, like, that the house is there. Like, she can't stay on that island the entire rest of her life without being noticed. And, if
That
she
you probably could. They were there for a while.
but
Like,
you get what I mean. Like, when somebody finally goes to that island, they're gonna see that somebody's living on the beach, or you're gonna see smoke coming from the top that somebody's there. Like,
yeah.
at some point, you're gonna eventually leave the island. You're not gonna wanna stay there, even for her, because she's not meant to be in the wild. It wasn't the fact that she wanted to be what happens at the end of the Survivor TV series? Do they continue to live in the wild, or do they go
No.
home? They go home. So, objectively, she was always gonna go home. She wasn't gonna leave her bird, but I think that the way she goes home is also it was the right time, especially now that Bradley and her had both been gone. An ideal world is that, and this is the sappy ending, they both walk out of the island and she ends up becoming VP and he's a good, kind-hearted business owner.
I will
But that
say
was not gonna happen,
there
obviously.
were points in time where I thought that was going to be the ending of the movie, and they were both
Yeah,
going to do horrible things to each other, and they were gonna go back to the island and have this, like, mutual psychotic fear slash respect for each other, and they were
yeah,
gonna lead the company together. I did think that, like, credit where credit's due for the movie, the story wasn't straightforward. Like, I think the setup of the movie was very heavy-handed, but once you get to the island, I thought of every solution under the sun for how this movie was going to end, and ultimately, I wasn't even mostly right. Like, her winning was something that crossed my mind, but I didn't think she was gonna leave the island and be a CEO, so, like,
yeah,
things
I
like
kinda
that still
I would've
shocked me.
at some point, somebody was
So,
gonna be a CEO, they were gonna be found. I knew that was gonna happen. That was the whole point of the movie. They weren't gonna live on that island forever. However, and this is will be my final thought about this film, and this is just a humorous thought. About halfway through the film when she's roaming through the forest, I sat there and thought to myself, "This reminds me a lot of Alvin and the Chipmunks 3."
what?
Did you ever watch Alvin and the Chipmunks 3? Do you even know what the plot of that is?
Maybe?
They
Maybe?
they're on a cruise ship and the chipmunks fall off the boat and they get shipwrecked onto an island and they have to survive on the island. And I was sitting there going, this is Alvin and the Chipmunks 3, just minus Jason Lee
So, I'm gonna give you
and
a
Ian
better
Hawke.
counter. You wanna know what was going through my head? And this is probably gonna be weirder, and I don't even know if you've watched this. Do you know the Sweet Life on Deck special where they go overboard and wash up on an island and have
Oh
to
my
live on a
god.
deserted island?
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did think about that at one point in time when watching this, where I was like, "This feels like that Zack and Cody special." And then they started castrating and trying to kill each other. I was like, "No, this is not the Zack and Cody special."
This is like Zach and Cody if Zach did something to Cody's Cody, you know? Um But
Yeah.
I don't know. Final thoughts for Send Help. Good movie, good time. Maybe better than Bone Temple. I really don't know. I'd have to think about it more. But Sam
I
Raimi,
mean, you're
ha-
comparing apples to oranges,
apples
but
to oranges. But
we'll get to
hats
that when
off.
our top 10s of the year come out. There are
I was
plenty
about
of
to
other
say.
movies to
I was
debate
about to
later
say.
on.
Yeah, but hats off, Sam Raimi. Good movie, good time.
Yeah, no, I think again, I think it is an okay to good movie with amazing moments that evens out to a really good movie, to a great movie. I just like I have my complaints with it. I think it's far from a perfect movie. There were plenty of things that like took me personally out. And again, I understand that that is a preference thing, but I'm here to share my thoughts, not the internet's thoughts or the popular thoughts. I'm here to share what I think about the movie, and that's what I think about the movie. So
Right.
overall, good time. I wouldn't say I had fun at all. In fact, I had the opposite of fun. And maybe this is going to be a controversial opinion. This is probably the closest I've ever come to walking out of a movie before, not because it was a bad movie, but just because there were points in time where I'm sitting there going, "Do I really wanna subject myself to castrate? Like, is that what I'm in the mood for right now?" Like, obviously, I
Yeah.
wasn't actually going to leave the theater, and it wasn't that I'm leaving because it's bad, but, like, man, there were some hard to sit through moments in this movie. So,
Do I feel like
yeah.
castration tonight? Yeah, why not? Let's watch the movie. Oh
But yeah,
God.
overall, it was good. I think if you were into this style of movie, you will enjoy it. But something else that you might enjoy if it's your style, and I'm curious to hear if it's Carson's style because again, we haven't talked about this, and I am curious to see what Carson thinks. Carson, you want to go ahead and give us your Wonderman review?
There is no way that this show was good. There's no way. It's insane to me. This is a show coming out in the middle of July. It's
January.
sorry, the middle of January or the very, very end of January, technically.
I was
It's
gonna
a
say, when the
show.
fuck did we time travel?
I would say the end of January. It's literally low marketing. They're dropping all the episodes at once. All of this had full track history to just say, okay, they don't care about this project. It's going to be bad. How is this one of the best things they've ever done? Like, good lord. First off, this is the most non-Marvel project I've ever seen in my entire life. And honestly, it's going to be to its detriment because the ending of this show clearly sets up a season 2 or a future project with both of our leads. And I kind of hate that because season 2 is going to feel a lot more Marvel-y than this first season did. And this first season was so well done and so non-superhero, almost to the point where I was like, this isn't Marvel. Why is this even in the MCU? I know that sounds like complaints. It's not. It's all good things, but it's just weird because I've never had to explain it this way for a Marvel show before. There's almost nothing superhero-y ever in this show except one scene in episode 5 when he beats up a couple guys, and then the very, very ending. And he's got obviously some powers that make things go boom and whatnot, but that doesn't have to be a superhero thing. That could just be like I don't know, just a random thing for a TV show. Like it's so strange to me because this show solely focuses on a world that I love, which is the acting industry and Hollywood and all of it, and uh, it works really well. But I think what this show does so special is that it does step away from the superhero aspect and takes the street level approach. It takes the more human character study approach with both Trevor and Simon, who are both clearly our leads. And I think that just watching all of it kind of unfold and the story unfold, I'm happy this wasn't a weekly release because I completely see a world where this was a weekly release and then people get upset because it doesn't feel like much is happening. But unfortunately, that's the show. There isn't a lot happening. You're watching two characters book an acting job. That's it. Obviously, there's deeper layers to it and deeper meanings. And somehow, in the year of our Lord 2026, 13 years after the release of Iron Man 3, Marvel somehow made us care about a character that was once really hated in Trevor Slattery. I mean, somehow. I don't know. I wasn't expecting this show. It had every reason to fail, and it just didn't. And it's one of the best things they've ever done. Is this Marvel's Andor? Absolutely not. I think that's a really hard and high bar to cross, but this is a very, very good show. And I would argue is probably like I've heard arguments saying, oh, it's top 3. If you say that, I wouldn't argue that with you. Like yeah, that's a very valid argument. If you said this was your number 1, I honestly still wouldn't argue with that either. Because this is an easy to watch show even without having watched the MCU. You actually don't have to watch any of the MCU to enjoy this show. The only thing you'd have to understand, which they explain, is the Mandarin stuff with Trevor Slattery. Why is he in prison? You kind of have to watch Iron Man 3 to get that. But other than that, you can watch the show on your own and enjoy it. Overall, this is an impeccably written show, well-written show. It's an impeccably acted show, which we'll discuss about that. And even the way it's shot is really, really well done. And it touches on an aspect again that I really enjoy, which is Hollywood and the life of an actor. So
Yeah, fair enough. Wonder Man is probably the most impressive MCU show I've ever seen. And I think the reason why I use the word impressive is not because I think it's the best thing the MCU has ever done, but I think we knew that Endgame was going to be a monumental moment. It was going to have balls to the walls, insane cameo fest, like everything you ever wanted in an MCU movie. So like it was impressive, but we also kind of expected that. Wonder Man is something that no one expected. Not a single soul expected this to even be good, let alone amazing. And it's also the most different thing the MCU has ever done. And I don't mean that to be like, oh, I'm just going to say what everyone else is saying, but like, there's 2 moments in this movie where he even remotely acts like a superhero, and it's really 1.5. The Moon Knight up until this point was probably the most different that I would say, and then the end of that disappointed a lot of people because it was a giant CGI battle. There is not a single CGI battle in this entire TV show, and the ending of it, I think, is really well written. I think it's really well done, and I don't think it's setting up a season 2 because, one, this wasn't Wonder Man season 1. If you paid attention, this was Wonder Man Spotlight. Spotlights don't get other seasons. So I did not take this as setting up their journey going forward into another show. As much as I'd love to see that, I took this as they could end their characters here if they never want to bring them back, or they will appear in a different property unrelated to Wonder Man. So I think that that really impressed me that Marvel had the balls to do that when pretty much every single other show, other than like Loki, I guess. Loki was giant CGI, but it was a very meaningful ending. And so I think that this is a very preference filled show, though. And I think another reason why I say impressive and not like amazing is because I enjoyed the show. It's just not like always my cup of tea. And I think it suffers from the same problem that every single Marvel TV show has ever suffered from, not CGI battles, but the fact that every episode gets better. And I know that doesn't sound like a problem, but like I was not roped in by the first episode whatsoever. I was like, okay, it's first episode, it's good, but I don't know. It didn't really give me much to work off of, and it didn't even set up the character to be like endearing or anything like that. It kind of set him up to be a jackass, and I get that that's the point, but it didn't really grip me in that first 25-ish minutes. Then the second episode comes around, and they start to introduce what the show is going to be about, and I'm like, okay, I'm getting into this. And then episode 3 happens, and I was like, no, I'm really into this. And then episode 4 happens, and I'm like, God damn, this is a fucking masterpiece right here. And then I wouldn't say quality dips, but I do think they peaked at episode 4 and then maintained a good quality for the other episodes. And again, I think there will be people who say this is the best thing that Marvel's ever done. And I think that really comes down to preference more
Yeah.
than any other Marvel show ever because it is the most different. It is literally the Marvel's answer to the studio. And I
Yeah.
think that that is going to work for some people. It's going to not work for other people, but I'm glad they made it. And it very much impressed me that Marvel stuck to their guns from start to finish.
Yeah, and look, here's what I'll say just starting it out, just because you touched on it. If there isn't a season 2, or if they're not pushing these characters into anything in the future that is more superhero-y rather than this is where these stories end, then fine. I'm okay with the ending. I didn't hate the ending. I hated the prospect of what a season 2 could bring, which obviously anything can happen. They could announce tomorrow that it's a season 2, even if it was a spotlight. They could very easily do that because it's Marvel and they can do whatever they want. That being said, it was the prospect of what a season 2 would bring because I knew it would not nearly be ever as good as season 1 because it was automatically going to be more superhero-y just based on how they left it. But if that's how they leave it off and that's how they cap it and cap both stories, maybe bring back Trevor for like a small bit here or there. Or I guess same thing with Simon. Sure, that's fine.
Oh no, I think they're both absolutely going to return. I just don't think it's going to be Wonder Man season 2. And I also don't think it's going to be in Doomsday. I do think they'll make a cameo appearance in Secret Wars just because I think every single Marvel character ever in existence is going to appear in
Well,
Secret
and
Wars.
that's the
But
specific thing is I think it's cameos. I don't really ever see these characters based on how they set him up, especially because he doesn't know really how to control his powers all that much. He's working on it still. Unless he ends up with Shang-Chi, which that was the only other possibility I genuinely thought of is that Wonder Man somehow ends up hiding out with like Shang-Chi with Trevor Slattery somewhere there. I don't necessarily see like where do they go? Where do they hide? Because like
yeah.
obviously Simon, unless he was caught on camera, which I don't know if he was caught on camera or not. I think they were trying to say that he wasn't. Simon can pretty much go back to doing what he was doing. He just has to hide Trevor, which is the only real
No, I
thing.
think it's they know at like they saw the crater. They know who saved him.
They
But
they they would at least believe it is.
yeah,
Um,
but Okay, so one other thing, and do you have anything else you wanted to say on that point,
No, no,
or
no. It was just the ending of like if there's a season 2, I hate the ending. If there's not a season 2, it's a fantastic ending to the show. It makes a logical sense. And again, them coming back isn't influenced by it. I don't care if they come back. It's the fact that if there's a season 2 and it's based more Marvel-y, more superhero-y, I don't like it because that's not the show they set up.
yeah?
But yeah, go ahead.
So I think one thing that I want to touch on first is I think one of the reasons why this show is impressive in a way is because one of the things that made Spider-Man Homecoming such a good Spider-Man movie and a good movie in general is we didn't waste any time showing this Peter getting bit by the spider or setting up how he got his powers. He just jumps right into being himself, and
Yeah,
that is the movie. This does the same thing. Is he a mutant? Is he an inhuman? Did he get his powers from an experiment? Where did like we don't know and we
we
don't
don't know.
care. At
Right.
no time was I sitting here watching this show expecting them to tell me how he got his powers or wanting them to tell me how he got his powers because that's not what I care about. And I'm glad that they stuck
Yeah.
to their guns at that. There was no even hint at all ever. Like that was what impressed me is they never even hinted to, oh, well, his dad worked at a chemical plant, or this gave him his powers, or it was the fire that gave him. No, it was
Sure.
none of that.
Well, and
Just
it's
has
ballsier. I mean, at the end of the
yeah,
day, it's ballsier because unlike Spider-Man, Spider-Man's a well-known character, and we'd seen the Uncle Ben story at least 3 times by that point. You know, we've at least seen we know this character, Peter Parker. Nobody knows, unless you are a deep cut Marvel fan, nobody knows anything about who this guy is. Nobody knows anything about Wonder Man. So to just thrust you into the
yeah.
story expecting you to know about it is also ballsy. But it
Well,
also
and it
doesn't
gives
treat you like, oh, you know what he is. It doesn't treat you like that either. It does treat you like somebody who's just an outsider who's just experiencing this. And that's what, again, like you said, it just works so well with the context of the show and the story.
yeah, and I know this is a weird comparison, but it's the Guardians of the Galaxy. No one knew or gave a shit about the Guardians of the Galaxy. They
Sure.
were a very different group. Wow, why can't I sit comfortably today? They were a very different group in the movie than they were ever in the comic books up until that point, but no one really knew about them, so no one really cared. And I would say Wonder Man is more known in the comics than Guardians was, but like I wouldn't say by all that much, in my opinion, as a
Yeah.
casual comic book fan. I knew about Wonder Man going into this, but like, I didn't know his backstory, and that gives him a lot of freedom to be like, oh, he's a mutant. Is he a mutant in the comics? Who fucking cares? Like, we
Right.
already rewrote what Kamala Khan was, so it doesn't matter.
Right. And again, honestly, if you really wanted to, because I don't hate the argument of it, they could reveal he's a mutant. You could easily do that because I know obviously that's the next step in after the multiverse. It's mutant, and we're
Yeah.
exploring X-Men and whatnot, and you could easily slide that into like Wonder Man's powers, and it could be a mutant story. Which honestly, now that I think about that, that's actually not a bad way to bring him kind of back into the fold is he like finds a way not into the X-Men, but like he finds his way into that crowd and that realm so
Yeah.
you can kind of bring him back. And that's also how you bring Trevor back to a certain extent.
Dude,
Um
let's talk about
yeah,
Trevor.
can we say
I've been holding like
yeah,
how
let's talk
the
about that.
fuck? How the ever loving fuck did Marvel take a character from Iron Man 3 that no one cared about? No one ever expected them to see him again, ever. And then he appears in Shang-Chi, and you go, him? We're bringing him back, which I will admit, because of the Mandarin being so crucial to the character of Shang-Chi and that
Yeah,
being the comic books with the 10 rings, it made sense. But they technically never needed to bring Trevor back in order to do
they
that.
just
And yet they
did.
did. And they
Yeah.
made him so endearing. And it was such a shock of the Shang-Chi movie for the little amount of screen time that he had. And then at the end of that movie, you again never expect to see this guy again. And then you see him in promotional material for Wonder Man, and you're like, really? And
What
then
is
you
he
watch Wonder
doing
Man and
here?
you go, well, goddamn, I love this dude. I want to have a beer with this
Yeah,
dude.
I was about to say it's such a depressing ending for his character. First off, I completely guessed that whenever he picks up whenever he calls Simon, he goes, "I figured it out," and you cut to see
Yep.
him, it's not
Yep.
showing his entire outfit or his face. I was like, "Oh, he's dressed up in Mandarin gear." He filmed a
Yep.
video and he's saying that he bombed them. Like, I knew immediately, I was
Yep.
like, he's gonna just take the fall for it.
And it hurt all the much more when it was revealed that I was right, because I'm sitting there going, "Please don't do what I think you're gonna do. Please don't do what I think you're gonna do. God damn it."
Because it's such a depressing thing, because you wanna see Simon and Trevor both come through as buddies and pals. You wanna see them come through the end. And even at the very end, like, yeah, Simon feels betrayed by Trevor working with the Department of Damage Control, but, like, they never officially stop being friends. Like, he's hurt by what happened, and Trevor's, like, honest, like, "I never gave them anything official, but yeah, I've been working for them because that's what originally it was." But I think
Yeah.
it's the idea of friendship that brings them all around. And the thing that brings it full circle again is the sacrifice that Trevor makes for Simon, and then inevitably at the very end of the show, the sacrifice Simon makes for Trevor, which is, "Hey, you gave me my moment. I'm Wonder Man. Let's get you out of here. Let's free you now that I've actually had this."
Yeah.
Again,
Well, and I
it
guess, like,
at the at sorry, not to cut you off. At the core of this story, it's the story of friendship between these two. And
yeah.
I think it's beautiful, especially when you come to understand Simon's character, how he didn't have friends, how his brother kinda didn't really treat him very well. The only real connection he had was with his father, who took him to the Wonderman movies.
Mhm.
Um,
So I guess I have a question then for you. Since we're already here, I was gonna talk about this a little later, but since we're already here, how long did it take you to put it together that that is what Simon was doing at the during the last episode? Like, did you clock it immediately and go, "Oh, he's planning for a breakout and not a role," or did it take you a second? Like, how long did
I'm
it
sorry,
take
what are you talking about specifically? Oh, that he was breaking
that he
Trevor
was
out?
scouting out a guard to impersonate or to get him
I
in to
wasn't
break out?
I wasn't thinking about it at all, actually. That was one of those things where it's like, I thought they were setting up like a season 2 with another role, or they were gonna set up something that his powers were gonna be revealed at the end. I thought the Trevor stuff was done. I thought that was it. I thought that they would maybe find a way to either clear Trevor's innocence because of the incident with some incident with Simon, but I didn't fully know. Until he put the guard's uniform on, I wasn't like, oh, okay, he's going to break Trevor out. That's clearly what it was. I wasn't thinking about that until he put on the uniform, because they didn't also say what the job was initially. He's like, I just want to follow
Yeah.
you, understand this. I totally believe that they were setting up a season 2 or an incident with Simon that would cost him to be outed with his powers or whatnot.
Yeah. No, I also did not clock it, like, at all until they put on the guard uniforms, and I went, okay, that's what we've been doing here." The one thing I did clock is, like, obviously he was gonna compensate the man healthily for his time, which was very nice. But,
Yeah.
I
Can
think yeah, what's up? What you got?
can we also talk about how Josh Gad is now dead in the Marvel universe?
So, okay, we're very like-minded because I was gonna ask you in a little bit more of a roundabout way. Do you agree that episode 4 is the best episode?
I don't know. I just watched this today. I need more time to think about it. Um, I really
Like,
like
Josh Gad playing himself, the
Josh
best scene,
Gad,
and I'm
man.
sorry, there were a lot of amazing scenes in this movie. There was. And maybe there no, not maybe. There are better scenes in Wonder Man than this scene, but my personal favorite scene in this entire movie is Josh Gad DJing as Olaf in the nightclub. I laughed so much harder than I ever should have laughed at something like that. I'm sitting on my sofa cackling
My first
at
thought
that scene.
my first thought was, how high were you when you wrote this scene? Because how do you come up with the idea that Josh Gad comes in, sings karaoke to Frozen, and not only does that, but DJs a different version of
A dubstep
a
Frozen.
and then calls the crowd bitches after saying, like, how does Disney allow that?
We're
That's
gonna
the other
melt,
thing.
bitch. He's like, when he said that line, I was like, no way, Marvel and Disney. Let him just say that,
I think
knowing that they're making another Frozen movie as well.
Well, I think here's what I think happened. I think Josh Gad has said for years, like, he wants to be in the MCU, but he also knew, like, there was really no place for him to go. And so I think they were just like, well,
Yes.
you can be yourself, I guess. We got this thing called Wonderman. I was like, all right, bet, put me in there.
Well, and it is so funny because Frozen is canonical in the MCU now. Like
Yeah.
Frozen is a thing. Olaf is a thing. But at the same time, it's just so like I don't know, it's so funny to think about whenever they bring in real world elements where like Chris Evans isn't a thing in the Marvel universe because Chris Evans is Captain America to us, but at the same time, Josh Gad is real. So it's like it's always the funny. Like, I don't have a problem with this, and some people might, and I think it's nitpicking on like the funny picking and choosing. I think another hilarious example of this, and it was actually to my knowledge, the first time they did it with an actor in the MCU was during the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special with Kevin Bacon, and Kevin
Yeah.
Bacon plays Kevin Bacon.
Yeah. Well, and he's also not the only one, even in this show. Josh Gad's not the only one.
Mhm.
Joe Pantoliano's in this of
Yep.
Sopranos fame. Very recently, he was in season 2 of The Last of Us. Very funny enough, as Catherine O'Hara's husband. Uh,
Did that catch you off guard when he appeared on screen?
a
Because I
little
wasn't.
bit. I'm like, what is Joe Pantoliano doing in a Marvel show? That he's another actor. I guarantee you that has reached out like, hey, I want to be in this. So like, we don't really have a place for it. You want to play yourself? Why don't you come on in
You
here? And it's so
want to
funny
play
when
like
he
a
comes back.
jackass version of yourself?
But that's the other thing is like he's regarded as one of the nicest people in Hollywood, which is also very funny because in The Sopranos he's a jerk, and here he plays just a jerk version of himself. You're like, what the heck? Like, what? What are you doing to Joe? But it's also one of those things that at the end of the show he comes back, and I'm
When
like,
he's
okay.
revealed to be having taken Trevor's role, I was like, "You motherfuckers!
Well, it's also
You
funny.
motherfuckers!
It's also funny because they set that up early. It's like,
Why didn't I get
Barney,
a Why didn't I get an audition for
why didn't
this?"
I get an audition for this? You didn't tell me they were remaking Wonder Man, and you're like,
Well, then
okay,
you
he,
also see Simon doing his final scene, and like I could. That final scene was supposed to be so emotional and it was supposed to be
yeah.
so heavy, and it was until they revealed that he was talking to a tennis ball. And I go, God damn it. I was like,
I think that would have been an opportune moment for just Josh Gad to come back into the fold.
so
So is he dead?
this isn't a problem at all. It isn't, but it is. And it doesn't matter, but it does to me. We are never going to get an answer as to what happened to Josh Gad ever.
He's dead.
Period. Point
They
blank. We
murdered
are
Josh Gad.
never getting a definitive answer on what happened to Josh Gad, and that is going to unreasonably upset me that either you killed or Josh Gad is sitting in a mirror in a door dimension, or he's out in the Bahamas deciding this to take as a retirement opportunity, never to be seen again.
It's really again, it's just funny because they even set up in the next scene, guys, beloved national treasure Josh Gad has sadly passed away after entering inside of the doorman. That like I mean, it's just like, brother, you gotta be kidding me.
But
Like,
like
I don't know how they
overall,
came up with that.
the Doorman episode was so good. It
Yeah,
was
yeah,
so because like it kind of told a parallel story to Wonder Man, just the downside of what Simon could have become.
yeah.
And it does it in a single 25-ish minute episode so well, so compellingly. There was only one thing I didn't like about the episode, and it's no offense to the actor, but god damn it, whenever he was falling into those doors, he looked so bad and so stupid. The effects were not good. Why was he just standing there kind of looking at the camera, not looking at the camera, barely screaming? It was just like a I laughed more than I should have whenever that happened, and it wasn't like a ruined thing. Again, it's another like stupid nitpick anecdote, but I'm just sitting there like, come on, the rest of this episode's so goddamn good. Why couldn't you just scream better?
I mean, yeah, I will also say it was a little awkward at first because I'm like, the building's burning down and this guy's standing in front of the door. It's jammed. He just came from the door. I find it funny that Josh, it's not like everybody was like some random person. It's Josh Gad who goes, wait a minute, guys. I need to enter through him. And he pokes his head back there. You're like, why? What the heck? It's so weird, but it also works so well. And the entire time Josh Gad was playing Josh Gad in this, I literally thought, he's just playing Josh Gad from the Pixels movie when he's just screaming everything the entire time. But it's so funny. Episode 4 is very, very good. But again,
Well, and before you wrap up your thoughts on episode 4, because I think you're wrapping up your thoughts on episode 4.
Yeah.
I just want to say one more thing about episode 4, and I think it's the reason why it's my favorite episode, is because it does a better job than most Marvel entire properties does at making the MCU feel lived in. And like things
Yeah.
are always happening and alive. And not only because it sets up the thing with the actors not being able to have superpowers, but it also, there are other people with superpowers that are going on that are so inconsequential. And this guy, he finds a goop that never needs to be explained because it doesn't matter, because it gives him a relatively inconsequential power. And it just, to me, it's just one of those small stories that never is going to get a full production, but because they get the opportunity to tell it here, it just gives an additional layer to the MCU. Like Wonderman as a whole adds a whole layer to the MCU because it is pretty damn standalone. But like
Right.
even this specific episode does such a good job of just making the MCU feel like a real place and feel lived in, and not
Right.
just every time you watch an MCU property, like pretty much every single MCU property other than this one, it is a superhero property. And it feels lived in, but it feels lived in by superheroes. This
Yeah.
makes it feel lived in by people with superpowers.
Yeah, and again, that it's just invoking the entire show because again, you don't ever really get a feeling or a sense that the MCU is connected to this in any fashion. Again, beyond Trevor being the Mandarin, when you think about that, and when they enter the
And
room,
the main
uh,
agent who appeared in
No Way
No Way
Home.
Home, and one other thing that I'm forgetting.
I don't remember what other the other thing, but I do know he appeared in other things too. Miss Marvel. He appeared in Miss Marvel.
Yes, Miss Marvel,
Um,
yes.
I think there's one more project he appeared in. I just can't remember what it is, but not important.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, at the core of this show, it's the friendship and the bond that Trevor and Simon both have. We already touched on like the what makes them work so well, but I want to say it again. The dynamic that they both share is beautiful. It's the friendship that Simon never had, and it's honestly in a lot of ways it's the friendship that Trevor never really had.
Yeah.
You don't think about it, but when you're watching episode, I think it's episode 6 when you get like his audition for the Mandarin, when you see the audition
Mhm.
for all of
Yeah.
it, he's like, dude, I just need this job, please. I'm literally I'm begging for it. I need it. Like they didn't care for him. Nobody cared for him.
And
He
again,
was
like that's what's so genius about it is we never needed an answer to that. No one ever would have cared about finding out that this dude was a struggling actor who was desperate for this role, other than
right.
what Iron Man 3 already gave us. But
Right.
yeah.
And it just works so well. And in a lot of ways, it's not even just the friendship, it's the father-son dynamic that Simon kind of needed because
Yeah.
his dad was gone. Again, the person who literally took him to see Wonder Man in theaters when it came out the first time, the film that made him fall in love with acting. And Trevor being the coach and the guide for him was just the start to a beautiful friendship. And then the fact that they both get the lead roles together also worked insanely well.
Yeah.
Um Again, also more so that it makes it more heartbreaking when inevitably like the reveal happens and then Trevor decides to sacrifice himself. It all is just a beautiful ending.
Well, so
Um,
I have a question then,
yeah,
because I've seen other people pose this question, and I'm
yeah.
curious your answer. Not that it
Okay.
matters, but I'm curious. Are they the best duo in the MCU?
I don't know. You're asking that way too soon to me finishing this. I mean, I got to think of give me some of the examples that people are saying for duos.
Cap and Bucky, Loki and
No.
Mobius.
Yeah,
Um,
that one's debatable. Yeah, that one could be debatable. Not
I
Captain
think
Bucky.
Loki and Mobius are better. but that's just like a personal thing. And maybe it's just because we got them for 2 seasons as opposed to 1 that I
It's
really
also the
liked
fact that
them.
we just got this show, like, a little under a few days ago, so we need time to
Yeah.
digest it. Definitely not Captain Bucky for sure, though. That's a
Yeah.
that is a over 10 years long dynamic that is so hard to just say, "Oh, no, absolutely, like, this is a better dynamic." You need more time to think that through. I think, again, you could get there, but I just think that there's so much with Cap and Bucky specifically that you can't really,
Yeah, you also
lose that.
have, Hawkeye and Kate Bishop, that's another duo. Ant-Man and the
Yeah.
Wasp. Um, you have, God, what are other duos? I'm trying to think. I mean, those are the main duos that I can think of. There are probably others, but I think it is a very strong duo. Don't think it's the best. I think the 2 ones that easily top it for me are Loki and Mobius and Cap and Bucky.
Yeah,
But,
Captain Bucky
like
for sure. I can give that one for sure.
but, like, for me, they just work so well together, and it's just lifted up by and I know you wanted to touch on this, so I'll give you the segue to do that. The acting. It is
Yeah.
so elevated by, like obviously, you need strong actors to tell a story about actors, but, like, really, really good acting.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like, you can even tell, like, that's the greatness in the acting here is when they are acting, like, e when in the show, they're acting, like, reading for the parts, or they're acting, like, trying to talk about, "Oh, this is how you be natural, this is how you do it," yet they are natural in the show. It's such a unique thing because they do become different people. Like, you see that,
Yeah.
and I get that that's the job of the real actor to do it, but it's such an interesting thing to actually watch because honestly, you don't see that a lot in movies and
Well,
television.
because
You
you're
don't see the
kind of
process.
playing 2 different roles, and I know that sounds weird, but it kind of is true because you're playing the character you play in the show, and then you have to play the character that you're because when you audition, you become a different person, you're
Yeah.
acting, but these are already people that are acting, so it's literally actingception. They're acting as themselves as actors, which, like, I'm not
Yeah.
an actor, you are, but I could
Yeah.
assume it's probably pretty difficult because you're
It
already
is.
acting
It
as
is.
a different person, and I need to figure out how that different person would then act.
Yeah, and one most of the time, especially in shows like Friends or most musical theater shows, it's played for jokes when you're acting on stage with somebody else. Singing in the Rain is like a for the musical version. The movie's obviously different. It's more in line with this, but the musical version, it's played for laughs. It's bigger, it's bolder, and then they go back to being the normal selves. And there's still the musical theater comedy that they have, but you're more natural, you're more real. That's the whole
Mhm.
point of it. And here it just all flows so naturally, but they do step into the role of the characters so well, and it just works wonderfully. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood also does the same thing, but you never really see the audition side of it. You see DiCaprio already having the role and he's acting the part. Um,
Yeah.
and it's just it's different here than it is in anything, or at least most things that I've seen.
Well, and I
Um,
think another thing that, like, obviously this isn't a knock, but it is kind of funny to think about. To me, the best acting moments in this movie, or sorry, in this show, is when they're acting.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
when they're giving the script reads or they're having, like I think the best acting moment in this show is pretty obvious in my opinion, but it is when they are doing the audition for Wonderman, Trevor and, Simon together in the house, and I just thought that that was the strongest acting performance, but, like, there are a lot of other strong acting performances in the show, but it is funny to
yeah,
think about, like, the best acting in this show is when they are acting. And that sounds like a stupid thing to say, but it's true.
yeah,
Um, Also, I think another thing to give credit to this show is we've talked about before with your, I guess, call it problem slash like nitpick with TV shows that
yeah,
a lot of the time they can feel like, oh, you have a filler episode in here. You kind of go off on a tangent unnecessarily. This is a tight 8 episodes. And maybe it's because they're shorter
yeah.
episodes, but like it's a tight 8 episodes. There's only one episode that you could technically consider filler, but it really isn't either,
Yeah,
and it does
it's
a lot of important setup. It's the one where they go into the drug house that ends up
to
being
get the
they
bike.
can't
Yeah,
yeah, to get the bike. It feels like a filler side quest, but
but
you're
it's not.
also Trevor's past coming back to bite him in the ass. They're trusting people, they're trusting each other. It's obviously very funny as Trevor is realizing that they're being lied to in a very similar way with how Trevor is lying to Simon, and it's
Right.
just like those moments I think are like make those episodes definitely not filler like other TV shows suffer from filler.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. I think that again, I think that episode specifically is the one that feels like it, but it's not. Like you would objectively you can call it that, but there's a lot of text within it to like push through to the next few episodes or pay off from previous episodes that it isn't technically filler. Plus, there is an objective to doing it. The video was taken of him, in the previous episode. Now they have to go hunt down and get the footage back to delete it and whatnot. So I
Yeah.
think that again, as much as you want to call it filler, it's not really. But again, all in like, oh my god, the cinematography of the show is really well done too. First off, I didn't realize this was Destin Daniel Cretton who did this. The same guy who did Shang-Chi.
I knew that. Yeah.
I didn't even realize. Or at least he helped create the show. I know he directed at least one episode, but he created the
Mhm.
show at the very least. I didn't realize that. Had I known that, I also would have had more faith in this project because I have faith in him as a director. Uh, isn't he doing Brand New Day? Isn't Daniel Cretton doing Brand New Day?
Maybe. I'm not 100% sure, but
Look that up and triple check and make sure, but I'm pretty sure he is. Um, but he just did a
oh,
great
he
job directing.
is. Yeah, he is.
He did a good job directing the show. And again, I don't know where we're gonna see these characters next. Um, at this point, as long as it's not like a season 2 and picking up directly where they leave off, I don't care where you
Yeah.
really put them in there. But I also don't want them being like a massive big role unless it's like playing a factor into the mutant saga. And we just see through the eyes of Wonderman of exploring mutants, similar like what we did with like Wolverine in the original X-Men franchise, where it's like we have all these mutants and we're exploring the school for mutants. Maybe Wonderman does that instead of Wolverine this time, and Wolverine's already a part of the X-Men, and we kind of get you get what I mean. Like it's something more like
Yeah.
that. I'm not saying that's what I want to happen. I don't honestly have a better answer. I just don't want a direct sequel to what they just did, considering I thought they left it off so
Well, and I
perfectly
think
good.
why I'm so glad that this was a spotlight and not a Wonder Man season 1, because I don't want like, it sucks to say because I do want a season 2. But with like, I want a season 2 because I love Trevor and Simon's dynamic, and I want as much of it as I can get. But I don't want a season 2 because I feel like they wrapped it up so well that it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to give a season 2. Because like season 2 could be the hunt for Simon and Trevor, but like that's not what Wonder Man season 1 was. And I can't personally, and it is why I'm not a director, but like I can't personally see how you would make that an interesting season 2. I like your villain would be the same, which I will say, like I liked the villain, but I think the reason why I liked the villain is because they only ever gave us exactly what was necessary and never more. They
Yeah.
set up his motivations, they set up his like desire and how desperate he is, and that he needs this job. Well, not that he needs the job, but he needs the job, he loves the job,
He
and
needs the score is what he needs.
needs the scores. And it is kind of disgusting and unfortunate that this is like quota based to fill a prison, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's a terrible thing that that's what's happening with superpowered individuals. Because that's the other thing. It's like this is not the raft. The
Yeah.
raft is where you're holding people like Captain America and like Abomination and things like that.
Yeah.
Whenever they go to jail, this is a prison where you're holding like you're Trevor's. Like
Yeah.
terrorists, it's like your Guantanamo Bay. That's the prison that they hold the terrorists in, I think, right? Like,
Yeah. But
so
it's different. But I also will say, like, because this is actually a good comparison, the villain in WandaVision was very different from the villain here. The villain in WandaVision was stopping Wanda, but felt more generic. Here, he is, yeah, I guess you could say he's generic, but he gives you exactly what you need. Like, he's not trying to be the big bad. He's not trying to be this evil guy. He is doing what he does because he has to survive and settle the score. The Sopranos' main villain, besides obviously Tony Soprano himself, objectively, if you look at the show like that, um, is the FBI, because they're always after the mob. They're onto the mob. They're trying to bust them so that they can win, so they can put the mob away. That's the point of that. It's very similar here. They're trying to lock up supers that are potentially dangerous so that nothing happens in the future. And yeah, he might be a bit more mustache twirly here, but
well, and
it's
I
still
feel
not
like
nearly as bad. Like it's not as bad as
yeah.
WandaVision was at the very least.
Well, it's like I really wouldn't consider a mustache twirly at all, and maybe that's just like a personal thing. But I feel like the reason why he is such a I don't even want to call him a compelling villain is because like I called him the main villain of the show because he is, if you objectively look at like a villain by definition, but he's also not the main villain of the show because the main villain of the show is Simon. And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is Simon working against himself. That is like
Yeah.
90% of the plot of this movie or this show. And I think that's one of the other things on why I appreciate the first episode way more after watching it. But like I'm sitting there watching this and I'm like cringing so much. Again, it's my secondhand embarrassment that I already talked about, but I'm sitting there going like, why how are they going to make me sit here for 8 episodes and watch this dude? I know he's going to grow and change, but like, man, he's so insufferable. And like, I don't know how I'm going to connect with this. And he continues to be insufferable for the second episode, but it really is once Trevor is introduced and that whole dynamic starts to happen that I'm like, okay, now I see what the heart of this show is. Now I see how he's going to change and how they're going to have that as a through line for everything. That I was really like, no, this is really good. But again, like the main villain beyond just this FBI agent is Simon himself. He's the only thing working against himself. He has such bad anxiety and such bad self-doubt that he needs to overcome that that's the true antagonistic object of this movie. The movie, a lot of the bad stuff in this movie would have happened without the FBI's involvement. And I think
Yeah.
that is also why the FBI works so well is because it didn't feel unnecessary. Like you could say, oh, when they set up the audition and he pushed him in the like, yeah, whatever. I'm just saying, like, his core character arc would have still been relatively the same, even without the FBI, but that doesn't detract from the FBI. It just means that they did the FBI so well that it didn't detract from the main core of the show.
Yeah. Um,
But
but look, all in all, this is by far the biggest surprise. I, I'm not even gonna lie, it is going to be the biggest surprise of this year. Unless Wuthering Heights is a beaming ray of sunshine presented to us
there
on
are
a
two
silver
movies that are
platter.
coming out in 2 weeks that could be movie of the year for all you know that you're shitting on. Wuthering Heights and Goat, movie of the year material right there.
I'm just saying, as of right now, this is by far the most surprising of the year, and it probably will stay that way. Like, I never expected this show to do well, and the fact that it did as well as it did just surprises the hell out of me. But
Yeah.
it's a good time. Genuinely, like if you're not a Marvel fan, go watch it because you can enjoy this show. There is a lot to love with it.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, it
very
is
different from anything the MCU's ever done.
it is funny that in 1 month we got two, for me personally, very so well, I was less shocked by Wonder Man than you, and that's mainly because I was less down on Wonder Man. I never thought it was going to be horrible, but I also wasn't expecting it to be this good either, admittedly. I'm not gonna be a purist and say I thought it was gonna be the best thing ever from the beginning, but it was still very impressive. And there was another property that came out this year that to me was very surprising, being Bone Temple. Like Bone Temple, like
Yeah.
blew my expectations out of the water. And I think I will say Bone Temple was more surprising and impressive to me in that regard, only because I went in with lower expectations, having not enjoyed the first 28 Years Later movie.
Right.
Wonderman, I had very little expectations or really anything to go off of. So when I'm sitting there and I'm like, wow, this is really good, I was more like happy and impressed, less than shocked, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, that's just my
Right.
personal thoughts. Um, yeah, that is our thoughts on Send Help and Wonderman. Next week, I'm forgetting what it is, and I have it written down. It's going to take me a second to pull up. Da, 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 da. I know one of them is nope, that's the
Iron
wrong day.
Iron
Yes, next week is Iron Lung, the Markiplier movie, which despite Carson's incessant not want to see this movie is getting rave reviews, so we will be watching it. Technically it released this week. The reason we're not seeing it is not because we didn't technically have enough time to talk about it. We could have, maybe should have. I am just going to Florida and didn't have time to watch all of these movies, and so we're recording a little earlier in the week. So Iron Lung will be a week later next week, and the new Dracula movie that's coming out is also going to be next week. So that will be the 2 movie reviews for next week. But that has been this week. Carson, do you have anything to send us off with?
I'm gonna promptly end this podcast, hop straight into bed, and take a long, deep slumber.
I don't know if I'm going to sleep tonight at all. We'll find out. But that has been another episode of the Nerdy Nimrods podcast, the only episode on the podcast where your 2 favorite Nimrods talk all things nerdy. You can find us on what?
The only episode in the podcast where you can
Yeah,
find it.
this is the only episode in podcast history where your 2
We're
favorite Nimrods talk all.
deleting all other
Fine,
47
fine,
episodes.
fine. I'll restart the outro, you jackass.
Yeah, clip this, please, for the
No,
love
this
of
will
God.
never be clipped ever. You fuck ass jackass piece of shit. Where was I? Thank you guys for listening to another episode of the Nerdy Nimrods podcast, the only podcast on the internet where your 2 favorite Nimrods talk all things nerdy. You can find us on all podcast hosting platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music. You can find us on frickin' Pandora. We are literally everywhere. You can also find us on all social media platforms at Nerdy Nimrods: Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Blue Sky, whatever you find your social media on, we are there. We might just post less frequently on some of those platforms that I mentioned, but we're still there and sometimes post. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Did you enjoy Wonderman? Did you enjoy Send Help? Are we a bunch of Nimrods? That's for you to determine. But as always, stay nerdy.